Hello and hi again to Dr. English YouTube channel. Thank you for watching this video. And this is Dr. Mofi, a PhD in Applied Linguistics. And today's lesson is very important because we're going to talk about how to write a letter. Well, I gave this title, Correspondence. Correspondence means writing. Well, and when it comes to writing, we have different forms of writing. You can write articles, like for example, columns of newspapers, or you can write academic articles. But today, we're not going to deal with that kind of writing. What we're going to focus on is actually correspondence, only letter writing. And this is very important because everybody's somehow experiencing it one way or another. If you want to apply, for example, for a job, or even to get admitted to a university, so you have to write an application letter or admission letter, right? Or even you want to write email letters, right? And send it to your friends. Well, correspondence is divided into two forms, or it falls into two categories: the formal style versus informal style, okay? In formal style, we have to observe a set of rules which are somehow inflexible or rigid and very strict. For example, your letter should look neat, very clean, free of mistakes, all right? So you have to actually check it for the typos or any misprinting or mistake. So it shouldn't have that kind of mistake anyway, because you're writing to somebody who, for example, you don't know, or who's going to receive it, you don't know. For example, the president of a university might receive it, all right? Or your future, let's say, boss may actually look at your letter or read your letter when you're applying for the job, for example. All right, so a formal style usually looks like this, all right? Regardless of the materials in the middle, which we call the text or the body of the letter, I only try to write the mechanical structure or the looks of a formal style letter, like this. Usually, we put the return address here, all right, at the top of the right-hand corner of the letter, okay? The return address. This is actually the address you're writing from, or in other words, the sender's address. Well, and then right below it, we write the date of the correspondence on which it happens, or on that day you write the letter, well, to a recipient. And this is the place where the recipient address goes, okay? Recipient address. This is the address of the person you're writing to, the company, corporation, or anybody that you're writing to, okay? And then we leave a line empty, as you can see, and then we write the salutation. We call this salutation. Dear sir or madam. It's very formal. Or to whom it may concern. Dear madam, dear sir. A long time ago, they used to write formal style letters beginning with this salutation, dear sir only. But after a while, the recipient of the address, they thought that might be a madam, a lady. So from then on, they try to start that salutation or write that salutation, including both of them. All right. Well, if you know, for example, who's going to receive it and it's a male or a female, then you could limit this to that particular title. Okay. Or you can also write dear Mr., for example, Smith. Dear Mrs., for example, Johnson. Okay. So and don't forget that you when you start your salutation with dear Mr. or Mrs., you can't write the first name. Only the last name with Mr., with the title. Or dear Dr. somebody, right? That somebody should be the last name only, not the first name, okay? Well, yes. And then you leave a line empty again, as you can see, and then you write here from the edge of the margin of the letter, right? We don't write from the edge of the paper. Be careful, all right? You have to, in fact, reserve or leave empty, in fact, the left or the right margin, just like what you do from the top or from the bottom edge of the paper or sheet of paper, right? And not to forget that the recipient address also starts on the line where you put the date, All right. Of course, this is also possible to put the date right above the recipient address. This is another, in fact, option you have. Anyway, so we come back to the first paragraph, and you write your first paragraph, and then you leave a line empty, okay? And you start the second or the third paragraph this way, on and on, okay? This is actually a modern style of writing, modern style of writing, versus the traditional one that I, in fact, explained or I illustrated in the informal style letter here as an example. But here, coming back to our formal style letter, we end a letter normally with an ending. Well, like I look forward to, hearing from you soon, or promptly, or hoping to see you, for example, soon. And all of these expressions that are available, you can find it elsewhere. But we close the letter with some expressions such as yours sincerely, or sincerely yours. Both ways are possible. Or usually British people use yours faithfully, especially when you start your letter with the salutation of dear sir or madam, or dear madam or sir. Okay, so that would, you could close your formal style letter with yours faithfully in British English. But in America, yours sincerely, or truly, or best regards, or best wishes, or with warmest regards. These are all the possibilities you could, in fact, end your letter with. And then you have to sign your letter, and then you write your name in printed form. Actually, in formal style letter, normally the letter should be printed, should be written, okay? Whereas in the informal style, normally, yes, PS also we can put down like whatever we forgot about that letter. Actually, starting with the initial letters, like P, standing for post, and S, scriptum. So postscriptum, which is a Latin actually expression, meaning that this is what I forgot. It's something like incidentally. All right. So when we forget something like an afterthought or something like that, then you wrote your letter or printed your letter, and then you forget, for example, something, and then you put it down there under or in front of postscriptum or PS, and then you write your idea that you forgot there. So about the informal style, it looks somehow the same or similar to the formal style, but there are some differences as well. Such as, for example, sometimes we put the return address here, no date, and sometimes there is a date, and sometimes you can even forget about the return address. Or you could put only the recipient address there. That's another option, all right? And also, we write or we begin a letter with this salutation. Normally, we know who's going to receive our letter, and that person is a friend. Right? So you write, of course, depending on your relationship or the nature of your relationship, it changes. So you can start normally, your informal style letter, like with dear, the first name, Jane, dear David, all right? Something like that. Normally, we don't say like dear, for example, Johnson, okay? Not like the last name. Of course, it is also possible if you, in fact, find a middle ground, meaning semi-formal or semi-informal letter. So that is also possible. So you could say in the, the ground between the two styles, we would, or we could squeeze in or insert a style which I call semi-formal or semi-informal letter or correspondence. So dear plus the last name is also possible there. So it depends on that, all right? Or the purpose of your letter, of course, or the recipient of your letter. Anyway, so this is the normal salutation under the informal style letter, all right? And then don't forget this comma. Usually, this is the American style. This is the American style. The British people leave it out. They don't use any commas after the salutation or even after the endings or closings, right? Anyway, so you start your letter. This is what I followed in fact, the traditional style. This is what I said versus the modern style, which we start from the edge of the left margin, but here we leave 5 spaces empty. Actually, this is the tab function of your word processing, in fact, software on your laptop, for example. It is automatically done, basically, right? So this is what we call indentation, all right? So we start the first line of each paragraph with that 5 space indentation. Actually, left empty from the edge of the left margin. So this should repeat at the beginning of each paragraph. So the first sentence of each paragraph or the first line of each paragraph should include this indentation pattern. All right? So we finish the letter, right? And then we close a letter, informal style letter, right? With something not as formal as yours faithfully or yours sincerely or yours truly. All right? Normally we end with something like love, lots of love, best, right? Well, or lots of other expressions that are available as well. You can search in Google and find it out, right? And then you sign, because normally the informal style letters are not typed or written, so you don't need to type your name there. Even you can only sign with your first name rather than your full name. Anyway, so this is the closing, as I called it, all right? And this is the salutation. And there are some very useful expressions you can find elsewhere, either to begin your letter or to end your letter. All right, there's only one point left that I would like to draw your attention to, and that is about the date. The date that I said, either you write it here or there, right? Whether it is a formal or informal style letters, all right? Anyway, the date in US system usually follows this pattern. Well, we start with the month, all right? Either in full, like September in full, like this one, right? Or kind of abbreviated form of September, November, like NOV. Then dot. Because, well, in US spelling system, usually when we abbreviate something, when we shorten the words, you need to put a dot right after it to indicate that this is the abbreviation. This is the abbreviated form. All right, but in British style spelling system, they don't put any dot there, right? So even if they shorten it in British system or in British style of writing, they don't put any dot there. Okay, so the month, the starts or date in US system, and then the day, all right, or the date basically, and then there is a comma, then the year. Yes, the year, either like 2025 or only 25, which is the last two digits of 25. All right, that is also another possibility. But the UK system of writing dates, it starts with the day. All right, like for example, this example that I wrote, 20. This means the 20th of September. Okay, well, and then the month, and then the year. Thank you very much for watching again. And why don't you give me your comments and feedback below.